Good. So once Tony's here, we can get him.
Yeah. So you guys are here. This is those two people outside. They don't show the forms.
Yes, that's the good. All right.
Around.
I did not. I guess I was being around there. So I think Carol might be here from the touch center.
We get a lot of people.
Give Tracy, the one girl, who does the appeals now. She probably watching.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, that wasn't her. Okay.
You ready?
We're ready.
Tony, you ready? Yep. Your technology ready?
Yep.
All right. The November Graphics Commission meeting will come into session. Mr. Freed?
Yeah, two preliminary matters. The first appeal listed on the appeals agenda, 845 North Wilson, has been complied with, so the appeal is tomorrow.
Hey, Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So again, yeah, first appeal on the appeals agenda, 845 North Wilson Road, has been, the orders have been complied with, so the, were withdrawn. We're not here tonight.
Okay.
We do have one other preliminary matter, case number 4 on the agenda, TC 23-036. The applicant, we think that there's a request taken. But we know both of them and we don't see it, so we might call that one.
Okay.
But there is one other appeal listed on the agenda, so if you want to call that appeal, I believe the appellant and code enforcement officer are here.
Sure. So it's case number 23470-070454661 Morse Center Road. Please come forward. But before we do, our city attorney needs to swear everyone in the room in.
Absolutely. If you plan on providing any testimony for any of the matters today, just please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that all the information or testimony you'll provide will be true to the best of your belief and or knowledge. If so, say I do.
I do.
And just a reminder for the commission, just make sure you're making a record asking if they've been sworn.
Of course. All right.
You go first.
I think so.
I have not been to this appeal board before. Do
Me
we
neither.
go for it? Go first.
Yeah, city has 10 minutes to present.
Okay.
Appellant has 10 minutes to rebut.
And you're keeping the clock?
I got it ready.
All righty. Let's go.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have one for.
You can state your name for the record.
Good evening, board. Name is Margaret Lafferty, zoning specialist, code enforcement. I am a supervisor for Mr. Paul Kidwell, who was the issuing officer. Paul Kidwell is off this week, so I have filled in and done inspections. And I have been.
Very good. Proceed.
Good evening, board. In front of you, you'll have a case packet in reference code violation 23470-07045. That is going to be for 4661 Morris Center Road in Columbus, Ohio. Second page will be an exhibit list. My exhibits will go from the graphics violation notice at Exhibit A. Exhibit B will be names and addresses of all parties cited. Exhibit C will be the copy of the service photo, which was served on 8/29/2023. Exhibit D will be copy of the graphics appeal. Exhibit E, zoning definitions. I will reference 3303.07, which is letter G, and 3303.19, which is letter S. Exhibit F, Copy of the code section 3375.08, unregulated graphics. Exhibit G, copy of the code section 3375.10, graphics requiring an installation permit. Copy of exhibit H is going to be the copy of the code section 3375.12, graphics requiring graphics commission approval. I've also included copies of code sections 3381.01, 3381.02, and 3381.03 as the officer that issued notice issued violations under 3375.08, and those also reference those code sections. Exhibit L will be the copies of the photos taken by Mr. Paul Kidwell. Exhibit M will be photos taken by myself. Those happened on the same day. And Exhibit N is just email correspondence between the code officer, myself, and the appellant. Getting into the violation, which will be the third page, Exhibit A, it's going to show a copy of my violation, or not mine, sorry, Paul Kidwell's violation notice. The code sections that are cited, that will also carry over to page 2. And then Exhibit B to that will be all of the parties that were cited when we issued the violation notice. And the exhibits are written at the top left-hand corner of your page. Exhibit D, again, will be a copy of the appeal statement. That will follow through the first 4 pages. Exhibit E, for the definitions, where we would like to be specific here is for the definitions for graphic and exterior graphic. Graphic meaning any communication designed to be seen from any public place utilizing letters, words, numbers, symbols, pictures, color, illumination, geographic or non-geographic shapes or planes, and whole or in part, including all structural components. The term graphic specifically includes the term sign, architectural decoration, mural, sculpture, show window display, outline lighting, and banner as defined. Exterior graphic, and this is where we wrote exterior graphic in the violation notice, is basically what we are calling what's going to be on this structure. Exterior graphic means a graphic displayed on the outside of the building, whether attached to the building or displayed elsewhere on the subject property, including a sign located inside of a building and within 3 feet of a window, so it is readable from the outside of the building. I also included show window display definitions. And then Exhibit F will be, the section D is actually the section that we cited. So under 3375.08 for the unregulated graphics, I highlighted in bold lettered the portion of the code where it specifically defines the properties violation. An architectural decoration, mural, sculpture, or show window display, provided that no on-premise or off-premise advertising or commercial copy shall be utilized. For the purpose of the graphics code, an architectural decoration, mural, sculpture, or show window display which displays on-premise or off-premise advertising or commercial copy shall be considered a sign subject to the applicable provisions of the graphics code. Again, 3375.10 was graphics requiring an installation permit. At this point, we are stating that the graphics are larger than 10 square feet and they would require a permit. Exhibit H is just kind of the sections for graphics requiring commission approval. Section A would probably be the best defined for what we're here for today. Variance required. 3381.01, 02, and 03 are referenced because they are part of the code section that was written. They're referenced in the previous code section. So at Exhibit L, it will show a copy of Mr. Paul Kidwell's violations. His violations that stated are 3375.10, exterior graphics, lacking installation permits, graphics that are within 36 inches allowed distance and can be seen from the exterior. 3375.12, graphics requiring graphics commission approval, and 3381.02, graphics that lack the proper permits and zoning clearance. Exhibit L is going to show pictures of when you go inside of the building, there's actually a wall built on the inside of the building, and the graphics are displayed on the inside of that wall so that they are readable from the outside parking lot or viewed. Exterior graphics lacking installation permits. The graphics are within 36 inches of allowable distance that can be seen from the exterior. Again, the second picture on that exhibit L, page 2, is going to be violations for 337510, which were previously stated, 337512 previously stated, and 338102 previously stated. Exhibit L, page 3 of 3, will be all the same violations again. And then my photos will also be a duplicate of what was issued from Mr. Paul Kidwell. It's that I went out and did an inspection so that I could be here today. And then exhibits N, pages 1 through 11 are just email correspondence, and in case there were any questions whether or not our department and the appellant have had communications. And I'm all done.
Okay. Let's reserve questions until the end here. You want to go ahead and present your case? First, please state your name for the record, and have you been sworn in? Yeah, were you here? Please confirm that as well. A couple people came in late.
Yeah, I came in to swear. Good evening. My name is Tracy Deal, TRACEYDIEHL. My address is 6487 Hilliard Drive, Canal, Winchester, Ohio. And I represent Guitar Center, as well as have an affidavit for the property owner. I'm sorry, is that microphone on?
It showed it on.
Is there a green light?
Am I just not loud enough now? There it is. How about that? Does that work better?
It's not, but it's lit now. That's better.
Usually I'm pretty loud and my voice carries, so. I will say as well, that as Ms. Lafferty said, this is my first time coming for an appeal, so forgive me if I'm not appropriately correct in what you expect the normal order to be. We submitted documentation showing that there was a lease that was signed and executed. And at that time, when the lease was signed and executed, then there were construction permits that were issued. We also pulled, as the last time when I was before this board and we discussed this and we tabled it, we also pulled all of the permitting records, and there are no permitting records for this address for when this store was built. So what we believe happened was that at some point, someone made the decision that these were show windows because these walls were built as part of the tenant occupying the space 20 years ago. And we discussed this the last time that I was here, and you asked me to provide some documentation. And so we pulled permitting records and a lease. And I believe the property owner may be here. The property owner is here as well, who can testify to the fact that these graphics have been in place for a very long time, way longer than probably precedes the records being organized within the system to show that this did or did not have permits, or it was or was not reviewed, or anybody's determination as to how these got here. But they have been here for a very long time. This is not a recent installation, and we need to really establish that this isn't something that just came about. This is something that was there. The final inspections were passed, the walls were installed, the graphics were installed. You know, the permits were, there was big giant plans that showed the graphics on them that were approved at some point. So we just don't know how we got from there to them being installed and not being noticed for 20 years. So we've submitted in our documentation, and I could go through it and read it for you, that we believe that there was a determination that this was a show window display. There is lighting outside that casts down onto the windows, two particularly. show that it's a show window. And that is one of the requirements by definition of a show window, and show windows by definition are exempt. And so what we believe here is that we have a zoning officer who wrote a violation because he's making the determination that these are exterior graphics, but we believe that these graphics became into existence because someone along the way determined that they were show windows and they were being treated as show windows and they were not being treated as exterior graphics. The unfortunate part about it is there's no permit history. There's no documentation. Even if you pull up 4661's permit history for 4661 Morris Center Road, there's like nothing. It's non-existent. So how did the business even come into existence there? How did the walls get built? How did the signs on the exterior of the building get hung? There is nothing to document any of that. And so we can only make assumptions, which isn't evidence for you. So in the notice of violation, several sections were noted, and we provided responsory statements to those sections in our submission. And so what we're here for today is merely for the commission, the graphics commission, to make a determination. Do they consider this to be a show window, or do they consider this to be an exterior graphic? I don't know if the property owner wants to add something to my statement and swear himself in, but he could certainly add in. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I'd like to hear from the property owner.
Yes, he's here.
He'd like to.
There's 5 minutes remaining.
Sir, we'll need to swear you in, so once you have a seat, raise your right hand for me, please. Swear or affirm that all the information you provide today on testimony will be true and accurate to the best of your belief or knowledge, if so say I do.
I do.
Can you please state your name for the record?
It's Mike Hurwitz. The company, Walpert Properties, we're based in St. Louis, and the entity that owns the property is MCNC LLC.
Great. Is it true that that all the window graphics that are of discussion today have been there since 2002?
Oh, yeah. We bought the property in 2004,
Yep.
and it was in existence when we bought the shopping center.
So the window graphics haven't changed. They've been the same way ever since you purchased
Same
it
thing,
in 2004?
Correct.
Anyone else have any questions? Firewood?
Is there like a statute of limitations? Oh, this is 10 years and
It's a continuing violation. So it would, it's more of a legal non-conforming issue, which I'll get to in a minute, but like any other topics.
then the other question, I think the city put together a public case here, all this stuff here. And I get the question that the appellant's trying to ask here. But if those graphics, say you had this, what we're looking at, those graphics, if the people and the backgrounds and all that were printed on there, but if you actually had an actual guitar sitting inside there or a saxophone sitting inside there, and it wasn't part of the printed graphic, would that still be a violation? You know, like, I guess what I'm saying is, I guess because it's called the Guitar Center and you're selling guitars and instruments and things like that, that it's become like a selling point. But if it just had the real pieces sitting in there, but it didn't have, but it had pictures of people and all that in there, would that still be a violation? I'm trying to get a handle on. And it
So-
kind of has to do with, you know, show window.
Well, so first and foremost, I kind of would like to also explain the ordinance was brought into play in 1998. So 2002 would have to conform to the code standard as it was in 1998.
Okay.
To answer your question, murals, sculptures, or show window displays which display on-premise or off-premise advertising or commercial copies shall be considered a sign subject to the applicable provisions of the graphics code. My contention and the code officer's contention was that this is a picture, which is advertising musical instruments for a company that sells musical instruments. Much like if a sports store was an athlete at the door with basketballs and softballs, it would still be a graphic within the window.
But if it actually had the guitars, the physical, I'm thinking like a dress shop would have dresses in the store windows. May not be 36 inches back, might be right up to the window. Is that,
Mike, no, yes,
okay,
how would you consider it a show
Yeah.
window display, which would be not,
That'd be considered what?
what is that? Show window display. With the guitar center on it, then it would.
oh yeah, I can see that.
What our contention is, these are graphics.
If that's the case, then what precipitated this complaint being brought by the city?
So to give some back on that, my code enforcement team, I am the supervisor for the zone, I'm a zoning specialist for a zoning team that goes out and does violations based on anything in the zoning code, graphics or zoning. The inspector that went out, Mr. Paul Kidwell, was actually responding to a neighboring property that had the same kind of graphics in their windows. So he is required by the way we do ours. If you're in a strip mall, we go down and we look at all of the properties within the strip mall to see if they are in violation of the same code. And we issue notices accordingly.
So this is like 400 through 4600 through 4700 Morse Road. There was some complaint about some other tenant within that shopping center. And in response to that, he just walked through the whole center and cited this.
As we were doing an inspection of the entire parcel, yes. This is on one parcel.
Yeah, sure.
So, I would like to, personally, I don't really even feel like I'm confused on why there's an appeal because we didn't make a decision. And this is not the place for us. There's a violation. And, I'd like to stand, in support of our code enforcement, department. Unfortunately, they got a notification, they missed a notification. They didn't, that which is not our place. And so I don't I think that if we make a decision on this today, going against our code, then we are setting precedent for other people to come in.
Well,
Say something?
can I address that? I think it's your charge of the commission to determine whether this is a show window display as the appellant
Okay,
contends, or an exterior graphic as code enforcement contends. So depending on what you determine it is, will determine whether it should be upheld or.
I'd like to provide some legal clarity. So 3382.04 does vest the commission with the authority to hear an appeal. So basically, if there's some type of citation issued and the party that receives the citation doesn't agree with it, they have a legal right to appeal. That appeal would be here in front of the graphics commission. As the appellee, the city appellee has the burden of proof by preponderance of the evidence to put forth sufficient evidence to prove or to show that it's a validly issued citation. So I'm going to disagree a little bit with what Jamie said in the sense that I hope this comes out clearly. Your burden, your responsibility here is to determine based solely on the evidence that's presented by whoever presents evidence plus any exhibits that you have in front of you that are admitted into evidence for this appeal, whether the city has satisfied its burden of proof, showing that these were validly issued citations. So you're not necessarily getting to like, well, we believe this is a show, whatever, versus a graphic. You're just saying, in effect, your decision will kind of articulate that by saying, we believe the city put forth enough evidence to meet its burden of proof. We think these citations are valid, which in effect is going to be saying we believe they're graphics. If you believe that the city has not met its burden for some reason, and you decide to, the word is reverse, then in effect what you're saying is you're not affirmatively deciding that it's a show wall. I can't remember the term.
No window display.
No window display. All you're saying is that the city hasn't met its burden of proof to show that the citation as a graphic was sufficient, right? So that's kind of the analysis that should be happening. The other thing that I will say is you also have the authority, in addition to reversing or affirming the violation, you can modify it as well. So that does give you some leeway if you feel like there's some middle ground somewhere that's, for you to decide. This may be more black and white than anything in terms of modifying, but those are the three options.
There's a lot of information. we get sent stuff, a couple days before. I started looking at this stuff today. The appellant is talking about a lease, talking about other documents that I never got. We didn't receive any of these exhibits until 5 minutes ago. Can we take this under advisement and?
Absolutely. There's no requirement that you rule from the meeting today. You can take all the testimony. This is a quasi judicial proceeding. So you take all the testimony here in an open meeting, but you then can meet privately for further discussion as a body before issuing a decision. You could take it under advisement. You still need to make a decision within a reasonable time frame, but you can take it under advisement and issue a ruling some other day.
Yeah, okay,
Mr. Cooperman?
sure.
I did submit the lease as part of my appeal. I'm not sure why you didn't get it. I don't know if I submitted this as part of my appeal or not, but I would like to make sure that you all have this. To the point of burden of proof, we did a records request for 4661 Morse Center Road to pull all of the permit history, and there is no permit history for that address. So that could in fact be part of the problem. The fact that there is no permit history for that address and the permit history is for other addresses within the shopping center could be clear evidence that the permitting for this particular store has disappeared.
It's like, for instance, for the last question, this is 4661, is the space right next to it like 4665? And then you're probably the best person to answer that. There's a different address for a bunch of different tenants within that same center?
Correct. I believe this was all part of one big space, like 466, I would say one.
Yeah.
And then there was 4661A, if I'm not mistaken, which is now the Columbus Bilingual School. I think it was Big Bear, going way back.
How big is the shopping center?
400 or 250,000 square feet,
And approximately how many different tenants are in there? Ballpark.
20, 25.
So what would be considered a reasonable amount of time, do you think?
I could look to see if there's any time frame articulated, but I would say probably 30 days is a reasonable amount of time.
I would say, if you get all the materials that we talked about today to Jamie, I'm sure Jamie will put it in a folder for us to look at. It's possible he even did that and we just missed it because quite frankly, we're not used to doing many appeals here either. I've been on this commission for, I don't know,
A long time.
13 to 15 years, and I think maybe we've done 10 the whole time. So, we're not necessarily a judicial machine up here doing appeals all of the time. And there's a lot of information, so I just want to be able to review it.
The other thing I would say is this decision is obviously subject to a 2506 appeal in the Court of Common Pleas. And so, if you're ruling today, you're going to be doing a finding of facts and conclusions of law.
There's no possible way to do that.
But if you're right, if you're not going to make a decision today and you're going to take it under advisement, if you have some subsequent, you need to make sure that either you have a court reporter present to make a full record of it, or someone's going to have to reduce to writing the finding of facts.
Sure.
And conclusion of law.
I just, it's difficult to absorb all this information when the city presented exhibits all the way through N and there's all this,
Agreed. I mean, there's
yeah.
no problem with you taking under advisement. I'm just telling you, if you do that legally to make sure you're making a record of it, because it's subject to a 2506.
Of course, no, but my point is, I would like it submitted, let us review it, and at the next meeting, we can address it on the record. That's the
Question, Tracy,
Yes.
you, in your presentation, you mentioned something about, you provided evidence the plans were approved. And there was big writing that said, can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, so we provided the as-bills, the plans that were approved, and they were stamped.
You provided the, Jamie?
We provided them via email.
Yeah, with instructions.
Because they're very large plans, yes, the as-bills.
Okay.
They're very large
Which show the
plans.
graphics. And they
Yes,
show the graphics.
they show the
Yeah, but
graphics.
the graphics were installed after the construction drawings were stamped, I assume.
Well, I don't know, and typically, when you're getting a building permit, it's just normal procedure. They say that's reviewed by a separate department. So the fact that the graphics exist, and I'll say that to be honest and transparent, the fact that the graphics existed on those plans doesn't mean that they were necessarily reviewed. But what I believe is that the graphics were not ignored. This isn't a situation where somebody went and illegally put up graphics without approval. The graphics have been part of the plans the whole time. They've been in existence the whole time, and the walls were built and these graphics were put on the walls and they were inspected. So if these graphics were in fact at some point determined to be a graphic that needed a zoning permit, then how did they get their final inspections? How were they allowed a certificate of occupancy? How were they allowed to even exist when these walls were built and the graphics were put on them and the place was inspected after the fact?
Graphics aren't part of the final site,
I'm sorry, Jamie, graphics are not.
are not part of the final site compliance plan or final occupancy.
So can I ask, I'm hoping that we could table this for 30 days. We can have time to.
That's what we were just talking about. So, is there any more questions?
I have one last one. Would you consider doing a variance on this? I don't know if that could be done at
Well,
this.
we were here before for a variance and we were told that we needed to dispute it with the code enforcement office. We went to dispute it with the code enforcement office and they went out and wrote another violation. And so now we're here to appeal the code enforcement violation. So we've kind of been going on a squiggly road to try to get there, to do a variance for the graphics to make them legal non-conforming.
I have another question. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Margaret Lafferty.
So is the date that you gave when they came to dispute, you gave them another code violation, is that in your exhibit two?
So actually if you go back to the original, emails that transpired between, the code officer and myself, what happened is that the code officer initially issued a notice for 3370, you mean, it's 337523. It would have been, or 3377.
7508.
3377. It was graphics attached to the window, and it was determined that these graphics are not attached to the window. So it should be 337723.
So it wasn't another violation with the.
Correction.
So it was actually a correction. So we initially cited 3377.23. It was determined here when they came for a variance that it was questioned whether they were in violation of this particular code section because it states in here, and I'm going to try to read this real quick, but it states that the graphics that are within the window cover more than 25% of the area of the window which it is associated with, but that they are attached to the window. These particular graphics are not attached to the window. They are within 3 feet of the window, which our code section specifically defines an exterior graphic as a graphic that is placed within the window or within 3 feet of the interior of the building, that it is viewable for on the exterior. I'm sorry, it's within so that it is viewable from the outside.
Let me make sure I have it. So it went from 337723
to the current violation notice that is before you. So they came in for a variance and then they weren't, I don't know, Jamie, I was not here for this particular variance, but I think the water got a little muddy between whether or not it was considered a window graphic because it didn't adhere to the window specifically. It is actually on a wall placed directly behind the window. So we rewrote a notice to cite them for exterior graphic.
And I would like to state that if the notice of violation that was issued on August 28th is a correction and not a new notice of violation, we were not told that because it has a completely different number. This was the original violation. This is the second violation in result to us disputing the definition. So as far as we knew, it was not a correction. It was a whole new violation in response to our question about the exterior graphic, about the window graphic being adhered to the window. So it was just a response. It was a new violation as far as we know.
However, if you look through email communication, there's email communication explaining to Tracy that we were going to be reissuing a notice of violation for an exterior
Do
graphic.
we have that?
Yes, ma'am, it's in your packet between the last subject in. It'd be, I can actually give you page 7 of 11, actually, is Paul Kidwell explaining it. But I can go through the whole entire list of emails if you'd
No.
like.
That's okay. So will you guys please, you're each free to submit any additional exhibits that you haven't already submitted to Jamie, along with a short statement, and he'll submit it to us. And during the next graphics meeting, we will issue a decision.
Thank you.
Quick question, do we do another presentation on that, or is it just a decision, sir?
I think.
Good enough?
But I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah. A supplement.
I can get updated photos, but I think obviously it has existed for quite some time. I don't think that's gonna change until we get a determination, so.
Yeah, the decision should be based solely on the testimony that's provided today. So after today, nothing supplemental should be added to the record.
Well, anything that they have on them here today, we can admit into the record. I mean, the problem is obviously the city submitted all these exhibits, which we're seeing right now. Again, it's probably likely Jamie put it somewhere where you
No,
didn't see.
Tim did, because I was under direction from the city attorney's office years ago to not submit the appeal to the Lincoln Court Report. We're supposed to come in here blind.
Well, that's right. I mean, everything is supposed to be submitted through the appeal hearing by either party.
Sure.
So either party could be code enforcement officer or city staff, any documents they want to submit. But again, everything needs to be put on the record in terms of what's being submitted
Okay,
at the hearing or the appellant.
so, okay.
I mean,
Ms.
if-
Steele, what would you, what documents do you have with you today that you'd like to submit for the record?
We have the lease that I brought copies of the lease and copy of my submission.
Well, here's the other thing. If either party has something that they want to submit for you to consider, but they just don't physically have it with them, but they'll email it to you. As long as they articulate it right now on the record of what's being admitted, they can forward it to you at a later time, but there needs to be a record here during the hearing of what's going to be submitted.
So you have a lease.
I will submit to you the permit history, the records that have been pulled from the city for a FOIA request on all permit history. I will submit to you a copy of the lease. I will submit to you the as-built drawings, and a copy of my submission. Thank you.
Can I have a copy for some?
Yep.
I want a copy of, can I have a copy of the, where you had the 2 different numbers, where it was confusing? And the price
Yes,
and-
a copy of the original violation and then a copy of the current violation. Yes, ma'am.
Those are already on the record.
And do you want this in hard copy or digital?
Um,
Probably.
I don't think we need a hard copy. You could ask Jamie separately.
I can put it all in a Dropbox.
I have that. But
Okay.
again, you have to present them as evidence to the board, but since you sent it submitted to me, I can forward it, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So we'll table it at that table. We'll take this under advisement and we'll issue a ruling on the record next week or next month.
The property owner has asked, he doesn't know what he has on file to prove when, they took ownership, the conditions of the property.
Simple. It's public record. You can go on the Franklin County Auditor and it says the date of transfer. So that's public
I
record.
just don't know if I have something in a building file that I might have that's 25 years old that could have been in there that the previous owners gave us.
Sure, like under due diligence when.
Yeah, and it could, I mean, our files are, one file is this thick.
Well, we can look, and if you think there's something that's significant, then we can address whether or not, no?
The hearing was today, whatever they wanted to present as an exhibit needed to
Okay.
be presented today.
Yeah. Very good. Makes sense. Okay,
Thank you, board.
thanks. Let's call our first case.
We need to make a motion.
No. Oh. Okay, first case is case number GC 23029, 3100 Easton Square Place.
3100 Easton Square Place is located on the northwest corner of Easton Square Place in Stelzner Road. It is zoned CPB commercial. It is part of the northeast area. The site is developed with an office building. Surrounding the site are single unit dwellings to the north office buildings to the south and west along the eastern square place, and an office manufacturing complex across Stelter Road to the east. The applicant proposes to install a 129 square foot wall side in addition to an existing 118 square foot wall side on the southern facade of the building. A variance is being requested to increase the combined graphic area for both wall sides from 216 square feet to 247 square feet. Planning supports the proposal as presented at the northeast area plan states that wall signs should be incorporated into the building architecture. The proposal is consistent with plan design guidelines, therefore staff is supportive of the proposal. Division of Traffic Management had no comments, and the Northeast Area Commission recommends approval of this request with a vote of 8-0. Staff can recommend approval of the proposed signage as it aligns with signs in the surrounding area and complies with provisions of the Northwest the area plan in scale and size with the building facade and general streetscape.
Right. Can you please state your name for the record?
Bruce Sommerfeld.
And you were here when they were sworn in?
Yes, sir.
Great. Please present your case.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Use the microphone.
Thank you. As staff aptly said, the application in front of you is threefold. It's the size variance to increase the size of the aggregate allowable size on that south elevation. It's to place a sign that's not contiguous with the tenant lease space, and it's to allow a second sign over a second story, or second sign on a high rise part of the building on the above the second story. We appeared before the Northeast Commission and met with their approval. It's important in NetJets to get their branding and their identification up there, and it is really the tail of the J, that descender of the J, that creates the size variance. If you put a rectangular box around the word NetJets, we're at 89 square feet. With that J, it makes us 126 or so. It's about 30 extra square feet just for that little descender tail. It's going to be a corporate facility. Most of their traffic will be coming from the airport, from their other facilities in Airport Drive. And we did look at trying to circumvent a variance by looking at a monument sign that would service both NetJets and the flight safety folks, but with the CPD zoning and the setback requirements and the size limitations and the multitude of foliage and entry landscaping there really wasn't a good functional opportunity to utilize a ground sign there. And it's necessary for the visitation and the work they're going to do in there to have some functional signage, at least for the southbound operation that we've shown here. So that's the nature of our request and the reason behind it. I can go through the hardship, that we feel there is some hardship with this. There is some exceptional shallowness exists with the extraordinary situation that prevents a functional monument signage, as I noted. And it does not allow, but it does allow for better visible functional signage on the building. So we opted to go with this variance request. There's some heavy topography and a screened raised berm along Stelzer Road there that prevents functional signage in the monument style. The above physical condition do differ from some of the other facilities in the immediate vicinity. A NetJet requires functional identification signage in order to recognize a reasonable rate of return. And in granting this variance, we don't feel will be injurious to anybody else in the neighboring properties or the vicinity, because there are a multitude of buildings with 2 or more high-rise signs for the anchor tenants on there. So with that, we would request approval.
Is this office space? Just curious. Is this office space?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any signs up there now?
Yes, there's one all the way to the west, right there. Yeah.
And the other side will say flight safety.
It says flight safety. That's the existing sign that says flight safety.
So just the one sign on this facade. Okay. Thank you.
There's 2 signs on that south facade.
So there's.
All the way to the left side.
That's right. I was looking at this.
Yeah. Yeah, just
But it's
one,
when you add the square footage of this to the other one that
both
gets
of them puts us over.
I got it.
Right.
Gotcha. No questions.
Yeah, anyone else have any questions? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion regarding finding the fact?
I can make a motion to adopt as finding of fact, some summary offered by staff, as well as the statements by the applicant to the extent that they're consistent with this summary. I'll second.
Okay, we can vote on it.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Ms. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Rumbaugh,
Yes.
Chair Cooperman,
Yes, and now can I have a motion to approve the application based on the finding of fact?
I'll make a motion to approve GC 23029.
Second,
A second.
we can vote.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Ms. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Rumbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yes.
Chair Cooperman.
Yes, and your application is approved.
Thanks very much.
Jamie, do you want, was it the case that we wanted to table again? Are they here?
Number 4. Rebecca, are you there? Okay.
We can call you case number 4, which is GC 23-036. Can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Rebecca Mott with the Plank Law Firm with an office address of 411 East Town Street, Columbus, Ohio. I'd like to request a tabling on this matter for my colleague Craig Moncrief.
Can I have a, do we need to do a motion? Okay. No, perfect. Okay. Go ahead and vote on the table again. Let's wait.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes. Table.
Ms. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Rumbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Chair Cooperman,
Yes, and
Thank
you're tabled till next time.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Okay, let's call the second case, which is EC 23-032, 4581 Cleveland Avenue.
GC 23-032, 4581 Cleveland Avenue.
is zoned R1 residential district located on the northwest corner of Cleveland Avenue and Pine Farm Road. It's located in Northland Community Council. The 6.7 acre site is currently developed with a church. Surrounding uses are multi-use unit residential to the northwest and south, commercial to the south and east. The applicant proposes to reface the existing ground sign and requesting variances to increase the portion of ground sign displaying changeable copy from 50% to 57.2%, and to increase the maximum permitted graphic area of ground sign from 32 square feet to 65.4 square feet to bring the sign into compliance. Planning is generally supportive of the proposal. Northland area plan discourages the full sign, but I recommend the signs be placed in size such that they are in keeping with the scale and size of the building facades and general streetscape, and do not obscure or interfere with architectural line details. It also recommends that all areas of development be landscaped in context to its surroundings, and that buffers should be designed and maintained to ensure a high level of capacity year round. Though the plan discourages pole signs due to its placement, staff is supportive of the proposal as the proposed landscaping is consistent with Northland area plan guidelines. The Division of Traffic Management has no comments. Northland Community Council recommends approval with a vote of 15-1. Staff recommends approval of the requested variances. The proposed sign matches the existing sign and graphic area, but will have a larger changeable copy display area. Staff has consistently recommended approval to automatic changeable copy signs for institutional uses as they provide information to its members as well as the general public. Further, the applicant is committed to providing plan required landscaping. We are requesting condition that the site plan be stamped to ensure the applicant commit to the proposed landscaping.
Thank you. Can you please state your record again, please?
Mr. Cooperman, members of the commission, my name is Tracy Deal. My address is 6487 Hilliard Drive, Canal Winchester, Ohio, 43110. I would like to also go on record that I am not an attorney. I saw somewhere in some communications with the city that it said my name and then it said attorney behind it instead of agent. I am an agent for the applicant. I am not an attorney. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that I did not go to law school. So this was brought to me when Day-Night Signs applied for a permit, and the permit to reface the sign to keep the existing structure the same height as it currently is, to repaint the poles and put in a new face on the sign. This occurred because there was a permit that was denied, and so then Day-Night came to me and asked me if I would work with the church to help them get the graphics variance for the existing non-conforming sign that has no permit history, to work to try to get a variance for this to be refaced. There was an existing ground sign out along the roadway that was damaged. And the church feels that that existing ground sign could potentially obstruct the view of motorists. And that is why they are not looking to try to put back another ground sign in that place. And this was explained to the Northland Area Commission, and they agreed with that statement as well, because they do feel that a ground sign could be obstructive to cars trying to come in and out, especially senior citizens trying to get in and out of the church parking lot. I have with me today Mr. McVicker, who is part of the church board, and he can speak for the church. I'm happy to go through the findings that were submitted if you would like me to. If you'd like me to, no? And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You want to say, would you like to take your name for the record, please?
Jeffrey McPicker,
Can you spell it for the court reporter?
JEFFREY, capital VICKER.
And do you weren't here earlier when, have you been sworn in yet?
No,
Do you swear that the testimony you gave today will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes.
Okay, please state your case.
Share with them everything.
Offer any
Share with
any
me.
additional evidence that you'd like to offer.
Okay, the sign that is there now was put up sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's now basically dysfunctional. We decided to just replace it in kind. And then once we did that, we went and got the sign company involved. Then that's when we found out that that sign didn't have a permit currently. Since it's so old, I have tried to track down whether there was a permit ever. I was not able
We've
to
been through
find.
that issue before.
It feels like deja vu.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Photographic evidence was submitted to you showing photos that are old from church bulletins that show the sign was in existence, from Google Maps showing how long the sign has been in existence. There has been several pieces of photographic evidence that have been submitted to corroborate that this sign has been there for a long time.
Yeah, we have all that information in our packet. Does anyone else have any other questions?
So that's the landscape plan that's being submitted.
Yes.
Yeah, what, that was the.
That's the commission record.
There were boxwood in front of it, but we decided to go with something lower because you can't get to the sign if the boxwoods were in front of it.
And that is the commission recommendations from.
That does, planning took a look at this and they were comfortable with this F1 paving. And as you can see in some of the old pictures, they did have similar landscaping, with the old sign, previous.
Great. Can I have a motion? Anyone want to submit a motion for finding of facts based on the testimony?
I'll make a motion to adopt the finding of facts as stated by the applicant and staff.
Go ahead.
I'll say that.
Okay, we can vote on finding of fact.
Ms. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Rumball,
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Chair Huberman.
Yes, and can I have a motion to approve the application based on the finding of fact?
I'll make a motion to approve GC 23-032 based on the finding of facts.
I'll second.
Okay, we can vote.
I didn't hear who seconded them.
Mr. Rumball,
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Hoyer?
Yes.
Ms. Augustine?
Yes.
Carrier.
Yes, and your application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case we have is GC 23-035, 50 East 7th Avenue. Mr. Kirk.
Right. GC 23-035, located at 50 East 7th Avenue, located on the north side of East 7th Avenue, approximately 100 feet east of North Pearl Street, and is part of the University Area Commission.
Is that mic on?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it better?
Problems with the mic.
Yeah, it's weird. That's the first time I've been quiet. Yeah, must be some of the mics today. Existing zoning is AR3 apartment residential district. The approximately 0.83 acre site is currently being developed with a multi-unit dwelling. Surrounding uses include single-unit and multi-unit dwellings to the north, east, and south, and mixed-use buildings and a church to the west, as well as a grocery store to the south and a fire station to the north. Applicant proposes to install an illuminated wall sign on the south facade near the southwest corner of the building. The applicant is thus requesting a variance to increase the allowable height of said sign from 8 feet to 20 feet. As of the writing of this report, planning has no comments on the proposed increase in wall sign height. The Division of Traffic Management has no comments. And the University Area Commission recommends approval of this request, voting 12-2 in approval. That being said, as of the writing of this report, the UIDRB has yet to issue a recommendation on this proposal. University Impact District Review Board, that is. The City Department's recommendation is that of approval. Staff recommend approval as proposed height is similar generally to the height of other signage present on multi-story mixed-use structures in the immediate area.
Okay. Can you please state your name for the record?
Jenny Robertson.
Have you been sworn in?
I have.
You have?
Yes.
Please present your case.
We met with the University Area Commission, who, like Dane said, was generally supportive. We met last night with the University Design Review Board, who requested that the height be modified from 20 feet high to 13 feet high, but were reluctant to approve on that adjusted height and wanted to table it to the December meeting with documents submitted as such.
So I don't know how we can approve your application if it's possible. I mean, are you going to potentially amend it if you take the recommendation of the Area Review Commission?
It is amended in what, I'm sorry.
If I can interject, so the UIDRB had their meeting last night and they opted to table their hearing of giving a recommendation on this case.
Right.
And one of the things that was mentioned was they potentially would like to see it at 13 feet. However, that doesn't really impact what we're doing here for the variance, because if you approve this project to go up to 20 feet and later the UIDRB decides we want it at 13, they can still put it at 13. They're not locked into 20 feet. That's just the max allowable now. If the commission chooses to approve.
Would you be okay with us adding a condition that it needs to be approved from the area commission as well?
It would have to be approved anyway by the.
Oh, because it's a, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my understanding is we can't get release of permit without that happening.
Right, yeah, there's different boards that have different powers, and that's one of.
Correct.
Okay, continue. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
That's okay. I don't know that I have anything else to add. Unless you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to clarify the height. So the application's for 20 feet, but it's been adjusted to 13 feet.
That's correct, based on the recommendation of last night's meeting. So obviously we had to submit for this meeting a month ago, but we just got the recommendation last night.
Okay.
So we hustled and revised the documents to reflect what UIDRB is requesting so that everyone's on the same page.
And you're okay with that?
We are, yes.
Sorry, one interjection would be, it should be mentioned that the residential reference code does not speak to wall signs to begin with. So really this has been we're interpreting this using the, code section that would be, applied to like, ground sign. Which is why that limitation is so short at 8 feet.
We don't have a good mixed use wall sign code or.
Residential.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, traffic code needs some updates as well, just like.
So based on a code that doesn't somewhat, yeah. And that's 8 feet.
Yes, the code requirement would be up to 8 feet.
So we're giving review to 20 and then wherever the area commission settles is.
We could, it was actually, Dane actually suggested that we just leave it at 20 feet, but I'm trying to be fully transparent and say that
Sure.
we're not going against UIDRB's recommendation, but I may have muddied the waters by resubmitting documents that show what we actually intend to do, so.
Yeah, expedited.
It's okay.
And it's a flush, it's not like a, it's not.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's flush mount.
So are you okay with 13 is what you're saying?
Yes,
So if we just vote on it, say it's 13, there's no more discussion about it, the other group's gonna approve it. At the end of the day, we can approve it as modified. Yeah.
Yeah, either way, if you approve it at 13 or 20, if the UIDRB says 13, it'll be 13.
I think we should approve it as up to 20, just in case. Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah. So you might, okay.
So that's just approving the base application.
All right, can somebody, anyone like to submit a motion for the finding of fact? I can do that. Fire away. I make a motion to adopt as the finding of facts, the summary offered by staff, as well as the statement by the applicant, to the extent that they are consistent with the summary and with the clause that the somewhere between 13 foot and 20 foot is going to be the actual height determined later. Okay. Second? I'll second that. All right.
It's not the smoothest, but it'll do.
Okay, we vote on adopting the finding of facts.
Mr. Cavaliers?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Hoy?
Yes.
Ms. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Rumpel?
Yes.
Chair Coopman?
Yes, and can I have a motion now to approve the application based on finding of fact?
I'll make a motion to approve GC 23035 based on finding facts.
I'll second.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Hoy?
Yes.
Ms. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Rumpel?
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers?
Yes.
Chair Coopman?
Yes, and your application's approved.
thank you very much.
Okay, fourth table, right? So number 5 is the next case, GC 23-037 3464 Sullivan Avenue. Mr. Trump.
3464 Sullivan Avenue is located on the east side of Sullivan Avenue, approximately 50 feet west of Durer Road. It is zone C4 and is part of the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. The 0.63 acre site is developed with a fuel station. Surrounding uses are retail establishments to the east, south, and west, and a commercial building to the north. The applicant proposes to replace a pole sign that was installed without permits. Variances are being requested to legitimize the existing setback of the sign and to allow automatic changeable copy for fuel price. Planning is generally not supportive of automatic changeable copy within commercial overlay areas. Staff recognizes that this automatic changeable copy is limited to fuel price and is ubiquitous, and therefore supports the request. Staff notes that all signs are generally discouraged by CPP guidelines and recommends a monument sign be used. Because there is no guidance for either plan on sign setback, planning has no comment on the setback of the ground signs. The Division of Traffic Manager has no comments, and the greater area Hilltop Area Commission recommends approval of this request with a vote of 7-0. Staff consistently recommends approval of automatic changeable copy for fuel pricing signs in the commercial overlays. However, staff recommends disapproval to the requested pole sign as they are discouraged by CPP guidelines. Staff would support the reduced setback for a monument style sign.
Can you please, is that it?
Yeah.
Can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Mitchell Powell, and I have been sworn.
Okay, go ahead and present your case.
I guess to begin with, at some point prior to summer of 2007, my apologies. I suppose to begin with, at some point prior to the summer of 2007, a pole sign was installed here. We have been unable to determine who exactly installed it. But it's been there at least 16 years. We can confirm that with Google Maps. That's their earliest photo, shows that as an existing sign. When we first learned that we had a problem, was when we submitted for permits here and learned that the sign was standing there illegally. And so our first consideration was to think about putting in a monument sign. Unfortunately, if you look at the aerial there on the left of the screen, the space here is almost entirely taken up by asphalt. And so in order to install a monument sign, we would need to dig significantly into space that currently allows traffic to move around. So it would be causing an already crowded lot to be further crowded. So, and the other thing is there's currently two bumpers, which I believe you can see in the photograph of the sign on the right. There's two bumpers, bollard posts, that stand in front of the sign, keeping it from being hit. If we were to go down to a monument sign, we have a concern that it would just be repeatedly hit by vehicles. So that's our thought on going to a monument sign. So what we thought after considering that was that most likely our best bet on this property would be to see if it would be possible to get a variance to legalize the sign as it stands, and then we would simply be changing from Marathon branding over to Sunoco branding. It would continue to display two products of gas prices, and that's a conventional gas price display. We're not talking about anything that flips from one price to another or anything of that nature. So it'd be two static displays that change only when gas prices change. And so that's what we're hoping to do. I'd be happy to take any questions or clarify anything I can clarify.
Do you know how long you're the existing owners on this property?
I believe it's been since 2003. So it's possible that the sign was installed under his watch. Although when a coworker of mine spoke with him, he didn't recall when it was put in.
Is the Sunoco, is that changeable? Is that electronic changeable copy too? Or is that static?
So I guess it falls under, if I understand it right, it would fall under the definition of electronic changeable copy because it can change from one price to another. However, we would only be changing it as often as prices actually change.
Yeah, no.
So it would be static as you
change. I was talking about the left side of the sign.
Oh, yeah, that's built right into the plastic.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
And so the existing height is 6 feet tall, or is that because that's the maximum for the monument?
We don't know if it's existing height.
It says that in
That's what we would approve. A monument
on the
sign
monument.
is 6 feet.
Gotcha.
The overall height of the existing sign is 15 feet.
I got it. So you're not increasing the height of the existing sign?
No, we would just
Replacing it.
be asking to change the faces.
I got it.
But they're legitimizing the
Yeah.
increased height
Yeah.
of the existing.
No, I get it.
Can you speak up? What'd you say?
They're increasing, they're legitimizing that it's a pole sign that is 15 feet.
Yeah, because they installed it without a permit the
Yeah.
first time, so they're trying to correct the mistake that was done
Correct.
originally. And so your testimony is that your hardship is that it would be too expensive to comply with the code?
Well, there's the issue of expense, but then the major issue would be that we're taking space out of the, currently it's asphalt right up to the sign. And so depending on how we set up a monument sign, If we built the monument sign straight into the asphalt, we wouldn't be taking up much space, but then it's gonna get hit. If we build it with a lot of barriers around it, then, we are taking out parking area.
But people don't park in front of that spec, beside it, right?
Let's see here. So I guess from where we're looking here, they would be to the right of that sign.
Right. And you can spot.
Right, and then, so we would just be reducing the area to maneuver in and out.
How many signs are on the structure?
On the structure.
The gas station building.
I know there are no pole signs on the property. There are no signs on the canopy, which is unusual for a gas station. I'm trying to remember right now whether there's any form of signage on the building. I could not tell you for sure that there's nothing on the building. And then there is a small, you can sort of see it in the lower right-hand corner. There is a small food truck that's usually there that sells halal gyros. There is some signage on the truck, but it drives in and out.
Good, we're already compromising by giving them a decreased
I'm
setback.
sorry, Aaron, I need
Sorry.
to use the microphone.
We're already compromising by giving a decreased setback.
I mean, that's part of what they're also trying to, which is.
Right. I mean, a decreased setback gets you out of the parking space.
Yeah, it's,
So, yeah. Maneuverability doesn't necessarily seem like a concern for me, right? You're parking car beside, you can pull a car out.
Do you mind if I just ask for a clarification?
Sure.
Are you saying then that if there was a monument sign allowed, we would be given the 12.5 foot setback and we'd be able to put it where the pole sign is?
I think staff said that, 12.5 feet was okay.
we would
Okay.
support it if there's a monument sign, that's the way we did it, but. It's also in here.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
We're just having trouble.
Talking to each other like no one else is.
It's already in front of me. We would support it if it was not a pole sign, if it was a monument sign, we would be in support.
Did you say that the Hilltop area did approve this on the staff report? It says.
Yeah, I was waiting for them, they actually moved that after I sent out these, so yeah, they voted yes, 11-0.
I'm having trouble getting past the fact that this owner installed the first pole without a permit and now is coming back asking to try to legitimize it, but it isn't really showing any type of hardship other than expense, which I'm not really sure qualifies. I haven't heard any evidence of extraordinary site conditions or other things that I think is compelling.
Yeah, I know the site was owned by the current owner from 2003 to present. I know the sign was put in at some point before 2007, the summer of that. I couldn't tell you precisely whether this owner or the previous one put in the sign.
I mean, have you considered the staff recommendation to do a monument sign?
We have, that was our first consideration. I wish I had some, would it be possible to bring up Google Maps at all? I don't know if that's something that would be
good.
I would just like to see if it would be possible to get a view from the ground. I think that would give an idea of how the space is laid out, but
I honestly think you might want to consider tabling the case here to listen to staff's recommendation, or maybe present more compelling evidence.
I can provide the hardship provisions if you need.
We're gonna look at the pole sign, right sign.
Yeah.
So Mike, as a sign erector, how hard would it be to put a monolith base underneath that sign?
The existing sign?
Yeah.
Spirited. I think that can be done pretty simple.
If they did that,
Really, even with the existing height,
yes.
we would have absolutely no problem putting a skirt on that.
Because I think you're making it monolithic at that point.
Correct. Yeah, we would very much not like, especially given it's a bit of a rough neighborhood, we would very much not like to have those sign faces down where children can easily reach them. But I would be thrilled if we were allowed to put a base of that nature in.
So it's refacing the sign to the Sunoco and then adding the skirt onto that.
So the only thing to augment on the agenda heading would be to allow a pole sign, so as long as we scratch that, but allow the automatic changeable copy to increase their setback.
Wouldn't you want them to submit the plan that you can look at and approve?
Well, if it's a monument sign, we would be in approval.
Without a variance.
You can modify the variance. If there's agreement from everybody, you can modify it and vote on it tonight if you wanted to.
Would you accept a condition that, it would have to be a monument sign, and city staff would have to approve it?
Absolutely. Just to make sure I'm understanding it right, basically what we're talking about is a face change to the sign and then adding enough skirt to turn it into a monument sign. Yeah, that's great.
I would like to clarify one thing too. You can add that skirt, but it isn't actually, this part you're adding isn't actually added to the sign post because you have wind load considered. So you still need to talk to somebody about structurally adding like 2 sign posts, so to speak, so that handles the wind.
Right.
So you don't have the wind load on the sign.
Yes.
But yeah, that can be done, I think, pretty effectively.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be much trouble.
Actually, Mr. Cuban, now that you mention it, we might want to bring this to traffic management.
Yeah,
Pole sign versus a monument
that's
sign
what-
might cause a little division, but
It's one thing to make a slight amendment and a slight condition. I think this is a complete, I would be more comfortable if the applicant tabled it and resubmitted modified plans.
Is the 12.5 feet dimension to the right away from the pole or from the frontage of the sign edge? Okay.
front end of the sign.
Okay.
Again, there's so much, there's clearance underneath, you can see underneath the sign. If we did make it a monolith, I just want to run it by our traffic management people, to make sure it's still safe.
Can I have a motion to table this case?
All right.
Somebody like to make a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table GC 23037.
A second?
I'll second.
Mr. White,
Yes.
Ms. Augustine,
Yes.
Mr. Rumbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers,
Yeah.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mayor Coogan.
Yes, this case is tabled until next month, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last case. Case number GC 23040, 4910 North High Street. And Mr. Smedley.
GC 23-040
No, boy, more.
4910 North High Street. It's located on the northeast corner of North High Street and Fourth Road. It is on CBD, the Planned Development District, and will be in Plainville area. The 1.68 acre site has been cleared for development of a fast food restaurant and an oil change facility. Surrounding uses are commercial from north and south, multi-unit residential directly to the east, and single-unit residential to the south and further to the west. The applicant proposes to install signage for a fast food restaurant and is requesting variances to increase the number of ground signs from 1 to 3 for signs A, 1, 2, and 3 on a single parcel to allow 2 pole signs A, 1, and 2 in the CCO to allow for 2 ground signs A1 and A2 that do not have a base to reduce the setback for sign A2 from 15 feet to 7.5 feet from North Road and to reduce the setback for sign A3 from 15 feet to 5 feet from North High Street to increase the maximum permitted height of a ground sign from 6 feet above grade to 23 feet 8 inches for sign A2, which is an existing condition, and to allow 2 menu boards, signs H1 and H2 to be located between the building and North Road right away. This property was previously the subject of of GC 22-019 would grant variances for a setback reduction for sign A2 to increase the sign area of second frontage and special permits for off-premise signs. The only one that will still be applicable is variance to increase the sign area of a second frontage from 30 square feet to 58.75 square feet. Furthermore, sign A1 is an existing legal non-conforming sign, which under ordinance 3186-2021 has been approved as to existing structural features, dimensions, height, and size of the graphic for the former TJ's restaurant shall be preserved, and only the design, copy, and color shall change. Planning is supportive of the proposal. Staff continue to encourage the proposed pole sign in location A2 be revised to match the proposed monument sign at location A3 for consistency with Plainville area plan sign guidelines, but recognize it is an existing sign that has been affected by right-of-way dedication and therefore do not condition support on this request. The Division of Traffic Management has no comments. The Plainville Area Commission recommends approval with a vote of 7-0 with 2 absent or abstentions. Staff can recommend approval of the requested variance as multiple ground signs are necessary for an eating and drinking establishment with a drive-through use. The pole sign, which is an existing non-conforming, is triggering many of the variances as it is taller than the maximum 6 feet and due to its nature does not have a base. The setback is justified as the sign is being relocated because of the right-of-way dedication.
Yes, Bob, can you please restate your name for the record?
Yes, Rebecca Mott with the Plank Law Firm, office address 411 East Town Street, Columbus, Ohio. I have not yet been sworn.
Oh, do you swear that the testimony you'll give today will be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay,
May I approach the board and provide some handouts?
please do.
Okay,
This is clear as crystal.
it's stressful. I can clear it up.
You start by just, so there's all these different, like previous
Yes,
applications that are applicable as, like, can you just start there maybe?
yes. I'd love to get some background and history on this property. We worked on the actual rezoning and development plans for this site back in 2020. The ordinance for approval for these 2 sites with 2 different sub areas. One is going to be a Valvoline oil change on the far right. You don't see the building footprint there because that's not part of this graphics case, but it is on my sub area plan if you want to look here. This is how the site was set up from the original rezoning. It's a CPD district. It used to be 2 different parcels. Now they're combined into 1 parcel. The front part, which is at North High Street and Morse Road intersection, will be a Chick-fil-A building, a little over 5,000 square feet with the drive-through, with some signage in the drive-through. Up here is a monument sign. There is allowed to be a monument sign in this overlay district, and it is compliance, and it's in compliance in terms of height, square footage, area, everything. The reason for, well, let me back up. We also have the sign, that's the TJ sign at the corner, was always depicted in the zoning application, which was approved in 2021 to remain and to be preserved as a historic significant sign to the community. So the design of it, the features, the height, everything, the location, all parts of that sign were to be preserved. In fact, you see an owl at the top of that sign. That was also to be preserved and remain. So that sign just gets refaced. There are some variances tonight that I need to talk about that include the sign only because we want one approval, streamlined approval for the signage because there was some hiccups with signage in 2022. I'll get to that in a minute. There's also an existing sign over here. This part of the property, it was an old TJ sign. Chick-fil-A will be using the bottom portion of that sign where the Pepsi logo is. The Valvoline oil change will use the top part of that sign. That's an existing pole or ground sign, not a monument sign. We'd like to keep that sign because it's existing. But I'll talk about then what happened in 2022. So in 2022, a company came in and asked for variances for all the signage. At that time, the signage company representatives didn't understand that this was going to be ultimately combined into one
The
parcel.
two parcels.
Yes, it was two parcels at the time, but the very same year, the engineering and our legal staff were doing combinations for this tract of land, which is a condition of zoning and was always contemplated to happen. Even though there's two different zone subareas, both those subareas have standards, commitments, regulations in the text. So it's kind of a story of the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. So when the parcels were combined, that did two things: combine the parcels, but also increase the overlay that only applied to the front part of the parcel at that time to the entire parcel. So now that overlay has now enveloped the entire parcel. New standards apply now to all of the parcel, including this TJ sign. So all of our variances requested tonight are to the overlay. And back in 2022, we'd like to preserve one of those variances that can still remain. So I would love to ask this board, when we get through everything tonight, if we can add the language I've kind of alluded to in my variance hardship statement, that possibly we could asterisk in the notes of the old 2021 A3 sign, or I'm sorry, A1 sign in the front related to the zoning that approved that main sign. And then
I'm going to interrupt you, but
sure,
they required you to combine the parcels as part of your
Correct.
approval. So there was no way you wouldn't have to combine those parcels.
correct. That's always a condition of zoning
Right.
unless there's some really legitimate reason to leave one out or something.
That's what I thought. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem, but in 2022, there is one variance we want to remain, so I note that in the area of variances list right at the top. So it says GC 22-019 to 3272.706 D2, a wall sign. That was already approved to increase the sign area of a second frontage from 30 square feet to 58.75 square feet. That's a Chick-fil-A wall sign on the second frontage, which is Morse Road. There are logos and wall signs on the Chick-fil-A building that are permitted as a legal right. That was the only one that needed a variance at that time. The other variances that were obtained in 22 are null and void because the site is combined, and those were off-premises signs. So now we're asking for substantially similar variances and adding those that may have been missed. So here's kind of the list. The first one relates to 3372.706 C1. That only one ground sign is permitted in this overlay, in any property that's in this community commercial overlay. We have a total of 3 ground signs. So we have the A1, the A2, and the A3. We would like all 3 to remain. The monument sign would be permitted as a legal right, it complies. And then the other 2 are existing signs. So we would like the first variance to be obtained because it really talks about existing conditions and legal non-conforming signs that we want to reface and keep. The second sign or second variance request is to 3372.706 C2 that discusses only a monument sign is permitted. That's the only type of ground sign permitted in that code. Well, we know that the TJ sign, the A1 sign, is already approved to remain and be preserved. It's historical. The A2 sign is an existing sign that we would like to use for both of these tenants and owners for their uses and businesses. And so really the monument type sign A3 is already permitted as a legal right and also meets this section of the variance request. The 3372.706 C3. This is a section that's a little bit weird in terms of the phrasing, the verbiage used in the code, but it talks about every sign having a sign base that's integral to the overall sign design and complements the design of the building and landscape. To me, I interpret that to mean a monument type sign base, a base that has either like brick, stone, or a principal material of the building is being used as a base that's integral to the buildings and the landscaping. So in my interpretation of that is that A1 and A2 as ground signs, pole signs, etc., do not really meet having a base that's integral to the buildings, but they're very important and critical to site operations. And again, they're existing legal conforming signs that we'd like to reface and preserve. Next variance is number 4, 3372.706C4. This is related to the right-of-way takes that have occurred during the permitting processes for Chick-fil-A's site compliance plan. There are 2 right-of-way takes. There's a lot of road widening and improvements happening to the intersection, to the signals, to extra lanes in Morse Road, etc. So there's a setback needed for the A2 sign of 7.5 feet instead of 15. And then for the monument sign up at the North High Street corner, that would be 5 feet from the right-of-way, the new right-of-way. So those are all about right-of-way takes that we have to deed property to the city. And so we did not cause or control that condition. Number 5 is 3372.706C5. The height of a ground sign shall not exceed 6 feet above grade. A3 meets the standard. So A1 and A2 are both the signs in question for this variance. A1 is already a sign that everyone wants preserved and maintained. A2 is at a height of 23 feet 8 inches, but that's an existing condition. In 3372.706E2, that the menu board signs are not supposed to be located between a building line and a street line. They are in between the Chick-fil-A building line and the right-of-way. So you can see those in the drive-through. There's nowhere else to place them. That is where the drive-through configuration and layout is. So we would like a variance for H1 and H2 based on site configurations, limitations, right-of-way takes, and what has been approved since 2021 for the zoning. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Rebecca, 3372.706 says that basically 1 ground sign per parcel. Why is the A3 sign already permitted?
Oh, okay. I take 1 ground sign is permitted. And then the next section says only a monument sign is permitted. So taking those 2 sections together, the monument sign is the only one permitted as of legal right under the overlay under today's standards. But the other 2 signs are existing, have always been there before overlay standards applied. The one wasn't even part of the overlay. It was in the rear part of the site. The other one's been there and has been there for many, many years, I think since the 60s or 50s.
I got you. No, it makes sense. I just didn't quite understand what, and on this, it said, there's a couple of places where it says blank panel, and you talked about Valvoline going on the pole sign on Morse Road. Is that Chick-fil-A on the A3?
No, the A3 is the instant oil Valvoline sign.
That's another Valvoline.
And they actually have that contracted for by their lease agreement with Chick-fil-A. That's an agreement between the parties. Chick-fil-A is only utilizing the sign at the very immediate intersection of Pie and Morse and a small part of sign A2.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying.
You're welcome.
I think I got it.
Oh, I had another question.
Go ahead.
On the historical sign, they talked about taking off the neon. And they're gonna add LED striping. Is that gonna work the same way as the neon used to, do you know, or is that?
So there used to be a scrolling light pattern.
Yeah.
And yes, Clintonville Area Commission asked if that feature, that historical feature could remain. And yes, the whole intent is that this is a scrolling arrow lighting, kind of pointing to the site and Chick-fil-A sign. So all of the historical features will remain and be preserved, but use modern technologies. So it'll be much more beautiful, aesthetically pleasing than the historical look of a place. Oh, and Clintonville Area Commission said Chick-fil-A should win their award in their area for historic preservation, and they're quite honest about that. They're very excited. They've been excited since 2021, ever since the zoning was coming through, and this sign was a critical component of the approvals and their, I guess, excitement for this project. Of course, Chick-fil-A doesn't hurt either.
It's gonna be crowded.
Okay, any more questions? Someone like to make a motion to adopt the finding of fact? Anyone?
Make a motion to adopt finding of facts as stated by staff and the applicant.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Go ahead and vote.
Ms. Augustine?
Yes.
Mr. Rumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Gary Cooperman?
Yes, and can I have a motion to approve the application based on finding of the fact?
I'll make a motion to approve application GC 23040, is based on the finding of facts.
One second.
Okay, let's vote.
Mr. Rumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Cavaliers?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Ms. Augustine?
Yes.
Gary Cooperman?
Yes, your application is approved.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else, Jamie?
No, we're adjourned.
All right. We're
Happy
done.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Good.
Yeah.
The restaurant's